Frank. What's the weirdest thing you've ever saw in here?
Let me ask you a question, kid. Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Hey, we gonna party tonight or what?
Yeah, we are gonna party.
Well, where are we gonna party?
I don't know, somewhere.
Hey, we could go to the park.
Oh, no, we can't. The cops said they'd shoot us if we go back to the park.
Yeah, and I ain't in no mood to die tonight.
I like death.
Greetings, ghouls, and welcome to minute 18 of Do You Want to Party, the Movies by Minute podcast of the 1985 groundbreaking horror classic, The Return of the Living Dead. I'm your host, Troy, and returning once again for this episode as a long-time running co-host of Geeking Off the Page and fantastic animator in his own right.
Hey, I'm Trevor. How you doing?
All right, so thank you for coming back to do this, Trevor. This is fantastic that we have...
It's my pleasure. This is so much fun.
Yes, I'm glad that everyone is actually kind of enjoying this and they're actually looking forward to doing this sort of thing. So that's always a good sign. All right, so we're going to go off with minute 18 starts with hearing a dog and ends with deciding to lock the freezer. So basically, Frank is answering Freddy's question as he continues to spray the Lysol and try to remove the sick smell from the air. As the hiss of the can continues, the sound of a panting dog can be heard. And when Freddy forces Frank to stop with the spray, now both can clearly hear a dog somewhere in the warehouse. So then Frank answers the situation, and after coughing fit, proceeds to figure out the origins of the sound. Freddy follows close behind him. We now switch to a POV shot, which is obviously not the first time that this is going to happen in the movie, but upon rewatching it fully again the other day, I'm like, wow, there is a lot more POVs than I had remembered it being. I remember this particular shot because it's the nice close-up on the dog and all that, but there was so many others that obviously you got the zombies crawling through the graveyard sequence and all that, but still. All right, so when we switch the POV shot, as we track around the corner of one of the aisles and slowly advances to a close-up of a small black dog lying on its side, panting, its legs slightly shifting around, and it's what appears to be a discarded plastic sheet bellowing around it, and it's on a simple platform. We now cut to a shot of looking upwards towards Frank, who using a nearby shelf to support himself, and Freddy, who's just now caught up with Frank. Freddy advances past Frank as he questions the problem with the dog. Frank seems to have a disturbed look on his face as he wordlessly points towards the dog to have him examine the pooch. Now, this is when we get into a fantastic sequence where the actual reveal of this puppeted dog is made. So, as for a brief moment, Freddy grabs onto the dog to turn him over to see what's happening, and we get this fantastic view of, well, we did earlier in the movie, we got to see what the half dog looks like up on the shelf, wrapped in plastic. But now that we see this now turned over, and not only that, but we get a musical sting. We get like a sharp, like musical sting as it's revealed that this dog is alive.
Animated.
It's animated. It is animated. It is totally animated. Its legs are now kicking a lot more wildly and all that. We can see that all of his sliced in half organs are all gooey and wet and all that. His mouth is... Yeah, glossy. Yeah, his mouth is like moving open and down. Even his tongue is slightly moving, which is fantastic. And of course, Freddy has his hand practically right inside this creature. Yep, and you can see. I mean, his horrid. Like we suddenly cut back to a pulled back shot of the two of them down the aisle, and they just flip out. Freddy is like completely terrified, and like Frank just loses his shit. He is like. He's like holding onto his gut. He's like grabbing onto the shelf and to keep from falling over. And they go into total panic mode. And you hear the two of them like ranting and raving and all that sort of thing. What's going on? All that. You can also just slightly hear the dog still panting and whatnot, which is fantastic. And then when Freddy suggests, well, what should we do? without a hesitation, as soon as that question comes out of Freddy's mouth, Frank instant goes, "We gotta kill it."
Grab himself a nearby crutch.
Yeah, exactly. Just grabs it off the shelf. Yeah. And of course, the musical sting goes along with it too. It's almost like a psycho stabbing sort of thing with every single hit. But the fact that the dog yelps at every single hit just and gets to the point where even the crutch is falling apart and Freddy actually has to wrestle it away from Frank, right? Which is a fantastic sequence because for a second or two, Freddy's like completely standing there stunned watching Frank do this. Like it's for like less than 2 seconds, but he's just like, what's going on? And then he realizes, no, you got to stop him. And he like in the upward swing to come back down, like Freddy grabs the crutch and like wrestles it away from him. He almost gets in another shot and then tosses it away. But as he tosses it away, something else is happening. And this is the sequence where we start hearing yelling from inside of a room. Knowing what happens in it, we know what it actually is, but we hear coming down from the end of the end of the aisle where they are, instantly catches their attention. And as soon as they hear that, Frank just starts screaming. He starts yelling, "Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ!" And Freddy still has no idea what's going on. What could possibly be? Then, as we come down to the end of the aisle, we do a zoom in on the freezer door that is shaking and it's being pounded on, and the actual like angered voices coming from within it. And when Freddy like again is like, what's going on? And Frank instantly knows what's happening. He realizes what is happening. He knows it's the cadaver. He knows that it's somehow come back to life, like the dog and well,
Half a dog.
yeah, half the dog and all of that. So and again, he's so distraught by his fear and the situation that he like has to stumble through getting off across what he wants to say and all that. And when he finally convinces it's the cadaver, and again, Freddy is doing nothing but asking questions. Exactly. It's well, I mean, what would you do in that situation? What are we gonna do? And he's like, he said, well, what is it? And he's like, he sounds pissed. And then what were we gonna do? And at the very end of this particular minute, we have Frank coming up with the result of we're gonna lock him in and starts to run off camera. And that's where this particular minute ends. So we are totally ramping up the action, the sensibility of this movie is now kicked into a new gear. Prior to this, everything was okay. We're going through our life and all that. Oh my God, we just breathed in all this smoke. Okay, the thing evaporated and all that. But now that we have this half dog that we tried to beat to death, and now a cadaver that we know is now alive inside this freezer, it's like, okay, this is too nuts. And from the way that both James and Tom act in this scene, they are totally beyond anything. It's like they're so believably distraught in their acting that you're so convinced that this is something that shouldn't be happening. Other actors, lesser actors would be playing this up. I mean, sure, you'll get good performances, all that, but getting two performances out of two actors that have different careers at this point, like I said, James is the anchor of this. James Karen has been acting for like decades and all that, and how Tom Matthews is pretty new to this scene. The fact that the two of them play off of each other, and again, it's the chemistry between the two of them that makes these two characters seem so realistic, seem so plausible that they are real people, which is something you normally don't get in a movie like this, which is kind of cool.
Also with these two, I mean, James Karen, basically he's playing like the old wizened veteran.
Yep.
Kind of like he was the wizened actor sort of thing.
Yep.
Whereas as Tom is, he's the new guy, he's clueless. So he's playing this as what's going on? What do we do? And he's like, well, we beat the hell out of this dog and we lock them in. Like,
Yeah.
How could you not think of this already? Like he's been through this maybe 3 or 4 times.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
what I loved about this particular minute is this kind of sets the rules. Up until this point, we had Night of the Living Dead, where it was the recently dead are animated and start shuffling around and hunger.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is like, who knows how long that dog has since it's been like sliced in half and turned into a display, probably for like a veterinary school. How long it's been sitting on the shelves? Like that thing could have been there for a decade. So it's not the recently dead; it's anything dead that was once living comes back.
Yeah.
And that really sets this whole series apart from like Night of the Living Dead or other zombie films, because I'm not going to spoil, but later on they even go on to show the lengths of which these zombies can exist. And that's I think this minute really says, all right, here's the new rules. Now you got to live by them.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, it's like being halfway through a game of Monopoly, playing it with the old rules, and someone comes in and slaps a big stack of new rules on the center, like right in free parking, and says, "These are the rules we're playing by, boys. This is the new house rules. Let's play." And you're like, "Oh shit!"
And I like how the also thing is, because the audience has the same information that the actors do. Like the audience is never really ahead of the actors. Like in some movies they are, but we all know the rules of the George A. Romero zombies and all that sort of thing, right? But once the movie gets into it, we discover at the same time that the characters do, wait, those rules are not the actual
those rules don't work anymore. You're like,
exactly. Yeah. So you got to see them improv for the whole entire thing, which also makes this feel more like when you have a typical zombie movie, you have obviously the characters that are being introduced to zombies for the first time and they have to deal with it. Then you have the movies where there are people that know about zombie movies and, hey, I know the tropes and this is how we do it, sort of thing. But the fact that this is, hey, we know about zombies from this movie that is based on real life and how different it actually turns out to be. It's just, again, another reason why this is such a fantastic, groundbreaking zombie movie.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Like it's as that, like when I was reviewing this section, and you'd sent me this particular minute, I'm like, I know this minute. I know this minute. This is the minute where the rules go off the rails.
Yep.
And
because
but the thing is, I mean, if you were steeped in zombie lore and zombie movies, you would catch it. But for someone, say, watching this film for the first time, you may not catch that. You was like, oh God, like the half dog is alive. You may not catch that as a reference of, oh, this is how maybe the rules are different in this time.
Yes, exactly. That's a good point. That is a very good point. Yes.
So yeah, it was stuff like that. Now, what I noticed is, when I went back and rewatched this clip several times, and you had sent me the script for this minute, and I noticed how much the actors improv. They go off the script. And it was funny, actually, earlier this week, I was watching an interview with Bruce Campbell, and he was talking about how some directors are fine with you improving as long as the spirit of the scene remains the same. You can change words, you can add dialogue, you can remove dialogue, as long as the spirit of the scene remains. Some directors like, that's great, because some actors on the fly can come up with just a better line. Then there are other directors or writers who are like, nothing changes from what is written down. And he was saying there was a particular movie he'd been working on where, they do the take and, they cut and they go to reset the scene to for another take. And this AP came over and said, you added an and an and a
I know the exact. Just from that, I know the exact interview you're talking.
So he's like, so I need you to do it again, but without those. And at first, he's like, he thought that maybe they were playing a practical joke.
Yeah, exactly.
No, they were serious.
Yeah. So over on the commentary track with director and writer Dan O'Bannon and production designer William Stout, Dan O'Bannon starts by praising the makeup department for making the actors look exhausted and sweaty, worn out and sick. He points out that sick is easy to do. All you have to do is make them look pale. But it's the exhaustion that's difficult to do. Where do you put the sweat? He instantly changes gears by saying, Here we go. The split dog. I wanted a dog. I want a big dog, but they couldn't afford this, so I got a little dog. So William Stout then points out that Tony Gardner built the split dog, and how from behind the shelves, Tony and himself, William Stout, were operating the split dog, and how the little dog was based on a Scotty. Dan O'Bannon jokes that if they had a bigger budget, that they would have a split Great Dane.
Oh my God.
Could you imagine that though? Could you imagine the ungodly gore that a larger dog?
Oh, they probably
would
could
have
have like
been?
half a heart pumping and the lung
Exactly. I
inflating.
know exactly. Just
something that small. I mean,
yeah, it was perfect for what it was. And
Yeah.
of course, you understand, yes, the budget, but I think it would have been a little too over the top to have a larger dog.
yeah,
which
that's why I
was-
was like, I think the small dog sells it better.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
at this
Yes.
point, it's the small dog's not a threat.
Yes.
If you pulled up like half a Great Dane or half like a Husky or something, if your hand got near its mouth, it would savage your hand.
Yes.
But this
yes,
way, you're
exactly,
like, oh, it's like a little yappy dog, and then you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
it's still alive.
Plus, I think the impact of hearing the yelping of a small dog than the
Yeah.
barking of a large dog as you're beating it with a crutch would plays a little better with a yelping.
Yeah.
So after that, he then points out his take on the 3 rapid zoom cuts as being like Hitchcock from The Birds, and how his, Dan O'Bannon's, was a little lesser in a way. So that's about the commentary from the minute that we got there. So according to the script, which Trevor had mentioned earlier, it's a story and screenplay by Dan O'Bannon, and this is the revised October 1983 version, which is when they were getting ready to start filming. Based on the story and screenplay by John Russo, Rudy Rickey, and Russell Steiner. So I've decided to implement with Trevor's introduction to this and all that a lot of the sequences from now until we get a little further into the action is a lot of two-person scenes. And seeing I have a host and a guest host, I figured we'd play off the lines against each other, each of us taking on a character. And I'll just read out the stage directions and whatever else comes up and all that. So, Trevor, you're going to be doing Freddy?
I'll do Freddy. Now, do you want me to do the lines as written? Because I've also written beside them the lines as actually used in the film.
Well, no, by reading out what is in the script, they'll compare to what. Yeah, if you want to do that and all that, we can go back after we've read through that. Then we can go back and do the comparison. Yeah, so go ahead.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
So, starts off with sounds like a dog.
Dog? They advance towards the direction of the sound. Frank turns on the overhead lights, illuminating the place.
Stop! Listen.
They get very quiet. A faint panting can be heard. Stealthily, Freddy and Frank advance through the aisles and packed equipment. As they round a corner, they see a dog lying at its side on the floor, breathing heavily. How did that get in here?
What's wrong with it?
They go to the dog. They crouch by it. Something looks funny about it. Freddy starts to turn it over. It is a split dog, a veterinary specimen, half a dog on a stick, but it has come to life. Freddy and Frank yell and they drop the monstrous dog.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
It shrieks with its one lung, the twists around the mounted stick. It is in pain.
What are we going to do?
We gotta kill it! Frank looks around for a killing device. He grabs a heavy implement and begins beating the dog. It just shrieks louder and jumps around. Freddy can't stand it.
Stop!
Grabs Frank's arm. What are we gonna do? Suddenly, there's a shattering loud crash from another part of the warehouse, followed by a howl of agony. Frank and Freddy spin around, leaving the dog writhing on the floor. The howl and screaming continues, accompanied by wall-shaking bangs that run towards the direction of the noise. And it's coming from the cold locker. Oh, Jesus Christ! Jesus Christ!
Are we fucked? What's happening?
It's the cadaver! The cadaver!
Oh fuck! What's it doing in there?
I don't know. It sounds mad.
What are we gonna do?
Lock the door. And that's what we got for the script portion and all that. So if you want to do the comparison and all that, there is quite a few line changes.
There is. So at the start, instead of Freddy saying stop, listen, he's like, wait a second, listen. Hear that? So it kind of expanded the line.
Yep.
And then as they come around the corner, Frank, instead of saying, how did it get in here? He's like, what the hell's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And then as we go down, when instead of Freddy saying, oh my God, he just goes, oh shit, and then yells.
Yeah.
And when it gets to when Frank says, we got to kill it, he's like, we got to kill it. We got to kill it. So he says the line twice. The second time really puts some oomph behind it. Like,
yes,
this
exactly.
The first time he's saying, this is what we're going to do. And the second time, this is what we're going to do. And then Freddy, basically, he takes both lines. So it's Freddy normally says stop, and then Frank says, what are we going to do? Freddy says stop. What are you doing? And Frank doesn't say anything, because at that point you hear the banging, and they spin around. And then when they run over the door, instead of Freddy would say the line is, oh fuck, what is it doing there? He just says, what's it doing there? They just takes I guess they figured they wanted to remove a fuck. I don't know. Or didn't give a fuck.
Or didn't, yes.
And then
they had no fucks to give.
No fucks to give. Behold my field of fucks, and I am not. And Frank says, I don't know. But instead of saying it sounds mad, he says, it sounds sore.
Yeah, I love sore. Sore sounds so, especially his delivery of the word sore. Yeah.
Sounds sore.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, instead of Frank saying lock the door, he says, lock it in. Because you can see at that point, you can see the hasp kind of bouncing. And the fact that the padlock and the hasp aren't secured. So it's whatever that handle on the door is that's holding it back at this point.
Exactly.
And
now this is go ahead. No, you finish.
So when I was listening, like watching the clip, listening, and then when I was going through the script, I was like, a lot of these little improvs make it better. Make it sound more real as to what people would actually say and do. And sometimes it's just a little changing of a line, removal or merging, and it's just a better line. It's a better delivery.
Yeah, and I was going to point out that the fact that your writer of the story and screenplay is your director, there is a better chance of, on the day of, that you don't have to worry about like no, this sounds better or something like that. Or maybe even Dan O'Bannon at the time said, well, why don't we just change it like that? But I'm pretty sure from stories that I've heard, James Caron is definitely the leader in this sort of thing, to change a line here or there to make it more impactful, to make it more like realistic feeling and all that sort of thing. But I'm pretty sure with Dan O'Bannon being who he is, he definitely is open to that sort of thing.
Well, I'm sure, like as I said, like later on when they removed Frank's line of what are we going to do and gave it to Freddy to say of like, stop, what are we, what are you doing? I'm sure at this point, James was like, why would Frank be questioning now? At this point, he's taken charge. He's got it's almost like, as I said, he's been through this before. So he's taken charge. He's not going to suddenly ask the Clueless guy, well, what are we going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't fit the character. He's taken charge. He's not going to start then asking advice from the person he knows is still wondering, like, what the hell's going on? Exactly. Why ask panicky idiot number one for advice?
So when we do the work print comparison, which is the original rough cut of the movie, we are currently in minute. So we're going from 18 to 19 minutes in the actual movie. But in the actual work cut, we are currently starting at minute 13 and 23 seconds.
Okay.
So again, the work print has no added Foley. So the two actors are reacting to no dog sounds whatsoever. As they start to search, it is extended, and we see Frank actually place the Lysol on the shelf. And plus, as we switch to the POV shot, it's a lot longer before we actually get to the actual dog. Now, no, sorry, no, I didn't mean to say a lot longer. It's just couple seconds longer. It's just stretched out a little bit more.
Mhm.
It's a little more of a weave in and out instead of all of a sudden we round one corner, we're right there. We hear Freddy asking the dog, "What's the matter, buddy?" Which is kind of neat how that's not in the script or in the actual final cut. And we also don't hear the yelling of the cadaver, but both actors react in silence to the silence. And but for the rest of the most part, it's the same as it is until the end of this particular minute, which brings up to 20 minutes and 31 seconds. So we're slowly pulling away. I do know that the rough cut is about 15 minutes longer than the actual final film. So I'm thinking I'm going to be running into a lot of sequences that are like, whoa, that isn't in the script. That isn't in the final
Or a
sequence.
couple seconds here, a couple seconds there, and it begins to add up.
Exactly.
It's funny. I honestly would have thought having Freddy say, what's the matter, buddy? Or what's the matter? That would be a natural. I mean, you see a dog laying aside. A person's natural reaction is almost like to talk to the dog to see.
No, for sure.
Boy?
Yeah.
You okay? What's wrong?
Yeah.
I kind of, in a way, would almost want to have that, even as they're coming around from their POV, have that line spoken over top,
like calling out to the dog, or someone calling out to yes, exactly. Like I know it's a dog, but you're not expecting it to be the half dog that you saw. Like exactly, the half dogs that you were introduced to about 15 minutes ago in the movie, but apparently 2 hours ago after they passed out and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
what's funny is you're mentioning like the in the work cut they don't have all the Foley sounds. And I was watching a much different movie earlier this weekend with my daughter, Best of the Best, and it gets to one of the fight scenes, and I mean the guys are just kicking each other, and with the Foley effects, I mean, at one point my daughter's like, how hard are they kicking? It sounds like they're breaking ribs with every shot. How are they still standing? And I'm trying to explain to her, that's just those aren't the sound effects that happened on set. Those are added sounds to give more. And she's like, yeah, it gives more impact. It sounds like they're killing each other. And I'm like, so I pulled up a clip online of a different movie, of the movie as this. It was basically the scene as it plays with a full effects as it was seen there, and then the scene as it was shot with the sounds on set. Okay. And I mean, it is hilarious. And she's like, where'd all the sound go? I'm like, they add that after. And she's like, I didn't know. I'm like, well, this is what I'm showing you. So it's funny when you have a scene like this where the actors are reacting to a sound and it's not there. Some actors will have they'll be counting in their head like 3, 2, 1, react. And if the other actor, if it's two of them and the other actor isn't clued into that, they're almost startled by the first actor, and then they have to react to the sound that they're supposed to be hearing. And you actually see that in this one. James Karen turns a split second ahead, and when he turns, you see Thom kind of like startled her, like, what the hell? And it actually helps sell that effect of just of what's going on. Yeah. And to me, again, that's just great little bits of acting in there.
Again, it just goes to show how, like you said, the great acting that from both, like I said, this is early in Tom Matthews' career. He's only been in a couple of things at this place, but the fact that he is teamed up with James Karen, he couldn't have had a better acting partner.
He completely lucked out in this case.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, so that's going to wrap up this particular minute of the podcast. Trevor, I want to thank you for making this such a nice, smooth, and easy go at it.
My pleasure. This stuff's fun.
Yeah, no, I love doing this stuff, and I'm glad that people are enjoying sticking around to help me out. So look for future sort of things. Going to be having some more of the same people come back in and all that. I just want everyone listening to this particular episode. This is coming out on the 30th of October. If you're listening to it live when it comes out and all that, I want you to also realize that there will be another episode dropping tomorrow. So I have another co-host doing another episode. It's not a Halloween themed episode. It's just an extra episode being dropped on Halloween. So be sure, if you're listening to this today, there's going to be another episode tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that. And hopefully everyone's enjoying their spooky season. Now, if you are watching this and you're listening to this in the future, and this really has no relevance to what you are talking about, but you know what? If you're not listening to this in 2026, you're listening to this in 2025 sometime, you know what? This upcoming Halloween, there's also going to be an extra episode that week as well. So just keep an eye out on the regular feed. And thanks again for everyone who's been joining the group lately. It's I've got more and more listeners coming in each week. It's not a huge amount, but the fact that it is I can see a growing number is always a fantastic thing. I would really hope that everyone would share this sort of thing with anyone that they feel would be interested in this movie. Probably the best that they've seen the movie to begin with, because the movies by minute without knowing the movie is a little bit on the curious side of why you'd be doing this. But I want to say once again, thank you, Trevor, for joining me.
My pleasure. Anytime.
And until next time, see you next Wednesday.
Toodles.
Well, Thursday in this point, but normally next Wednesday. You've just been listening to a Planet Geek production of Do You Want to Party? A Movies by Minute podcast of the 1985 The Return of the Living Dead. Please be sure to subscribe, download, comment, share, rate, and review. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, or Letterboxd. Search for Planet Geek Productions. X, former Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, search for Planet Geek Pod. Or send us an email to planetgeekpod@gmail.com. Our closing music is provided by Night Chill. See the show notes for more details. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and farewell, fiends.